It is 4 in the morning, the hour of the wolf. The city outside has finally gone quiet, but the room has not. You are lying there, staring up at a ceiling that hasn't been painted in years, listening to the radiator hiss like it's struggling to breathe. On the scratched formica table beside the bed, a cup of instant coffee sits untouched. A thin film of oil has formed on the surface, cold, congealed, forgotten. And you are doing the math. We all do the math in the dark. You count the years you have lived against the things you have actually done. You weigh your potential against your reality, and the scale doesn't tip gently. It slams to the floor with a dull, sickening thud. There is a specific kind of panic that arrives in middle age. Not the sharp, screaming panic of youth, but a cold fog that rolls in slowly, without drama. It is the realization that the someday you promised yourself 20 years ago has arrived, and the person you were supposed to be didn't show up. If you know this feeling, if you have ever stood in a bathroom under harsh fluorescent light, traced a new line beside your eye, and wondered, quietly, if the window has already closed, then stay. Tonight is not about a movie star. It is not about awards, or iconic voices, or success stories told backward. Tonight is about a man sitting on the edge of a sagging mattress in a walk-up apartment in New York City. The year is 1980. He is 43 years old. He is broke. He is exhausted. And on the table, beside that cold cup of coffee, there is an envelope. The world likes to tell us that if you haven't bloomed by 30, something is wrong with you, that you missed the timing, that you arrived late to your own life. But that story skips the most dangerous moment of all. Not failure, not humiliation, but the moment when giving up starts to feel reasonable. Tonight, we are going to sit with a man who has written a letter that admits defeat and has not yet decided whether to drop it in the mailbox. He wasn't born old. It's hard to imagine him young, isn't it? We know his face now as a landscape of gravity, the freckles, the gray hair, the eyes that look like they've been holding secrets for decades. But once, there was a boy in Mississippi who looked up at the sky and wanted to conquer it. In 1955, he was 18. He had a chance to study drama. Instead, he joined the Air Force. He didn't want a stage. He wanted speed, altitude, the violence of breaking through clouds at the edge of sound. He wanted to fly. But dreams have a way of colliding with concrete. He didn't become a pilot. He became a radar mechanic. Think about the cruelty of that for a moment. Every day, for 4 years, he sat inside fighter jets that never left the ground. He fixed radios, he checked dials, he polished glass. He sat in the exact seat of his ambition and watched other men lift into the sky while he wiped grease from his hands on the tarmac. It was a perfect rehearsal for the next 2 decades of his life. When he arrived in Hollywood in 1959, he believed the waiting was over. He was tall, handsome. He had a voice that could press against your chest. He thought the doors would open. Instead, he found a wall. The 60s passed. The 70s followed. The world burned, shifted, reinvented itself, and somehow he remained in the same place. He wasn't unemployed. That would have been easier to explain. He was functional. He worked as a transcript clerk, typing words he didn't write, day after day, listening to other people's stories through headphones while his own life sat quietly on hold. In 1964, he danced at the World's Fair, not because he loved dancing, but because he needed to eat. Picture it. A man with the soul of Othello, smiling and kicking his legs for tourists who were more interested in cotton candy than the artist in front of them. He wasn't invisible. He was worse than invisible. He was background texture, furniture in other people's memories. There is a special kind of agony in being almost okay. He could pay the rent, barely. He could buy groceries, usually, but he was starving in the middle of a crowded room, starving for significance. Most people quit somewhere in those years, and honestly, they should. When the universe says no for thousands of days in a row, quitting feels intelligent, responsible, mature. The sensible man finds a stable job. The sensible man stops asking dangerous questions. But he kept walking into the wind, kept refining a craft no one was buying, kept building a fire in a house no one visited, until one night. The silence grew too loud to ignore. The first time he truly considered killing the dream didn't happen under stage lights or in front of a casting director. It happened in his own kitchen, standing over a sink full of dishes, hands wet, radio off. That was the moment the envelope began to exist. Then the trap sprang. It didn't look like a trap. It looked like relief. In 1971, he landed a steady job on a children's television show called The Electric Company. Suddenly, his face mattered. People recognized him on the street. They smiled. They pointed. For the first time in his adult life, the math worked. The rent got paid on time. The fridge wasn't empty. There was even a boat, a modest one, but real. Stability had finally arrived, and stability is seductive, especially to a man who has spent years bracing himself against rejection. Stability feels like proof, like permission to stop flinching. But for an artist, stability can also be a cage. Imagine it. A man who has studied Shakespeare in silence, a man who wants to play kings, prisoners, men with blood on their hands and truth in their voices. And every morning, he puts on bright clothes. He steps under studio lights. He shouts cheerful lines to an audience of 7-year-olds. "Hey, you guys!" The children love him. The parents recognize him. The producers renew his contract. And somewhere inside, something starts to rot. He is grateful, truly. He never confuses dissatisfaction with entitlement. But gratitude does not cure misalignment. He begins to feel like a clown, a visible one, a successful one. A clown, nonetheless. This is the part of the story we usually skip because it makes us uncomfortable. We like suffering that looks noble, clean, temporary. But his suffering didn't look like that. It looked like waking up to applause and going to bed empty. It looked like knowing you are finally being seen and realizing you are being seen for the wrong thing. So he started drinking, not loudly, not dramatically. He drank the way tired men drink, quietly, to smooth the edges of the day, to lower the volume on a life that no longer fit. Some mornings, the idea of facing the studio without it felt impossible. The bottle didn't make him braver, it made him numb. He later said he was digging a hole, not to disappear, just to find a bottom. When the Electric Company was canceled in 1977, the cage door opened, but the bird had forgotten how to fly. The money stopped, the phone slowed, and the industry made a decision without ever saying it out loud. Oh, that's the guy from the kids' show. They didn't see an actor. They saw a costume that had overstayed its welcome. He was 40 years old, divorced, drifting. The youth that had promised him so much was gone. The hair was thinning. The lines on his face had deepened. carving worry into the skin. He moved into a small, dark apartment in New York City. The year was 1980. This wasn't the bottom you see in movies. There was no explosion, no shouting, no dramatic collapse. Just a kitchen that stayed cold. He sat at the table one night, staring at a disconnection notice for his electricity. The paper was thin, official, final. He looked at his hands. Hands that had learned lines no one would remember. Hands that had shaken applause and poured drinks and typed words that weren't his. And he made a practical decision. He pulled out a piece of paper. It wasn't a script. It wasn't a letter to a friend. It was an application to drive a taxi. Not because he wanted to quit acting, because he needed to eat. He filled it out carefully, folded it once, then again, licked the stamp. It wasn't a tragedy yet. It was just a choice, a reasonable one. The kind adults make when dreams stop paying rent. He placed the envelope on the table, beside the cold coffee, and for a long time, he just looked at it. He didn't mail it. Not that night. The universe has a strange sense of timing. It rarely interrupts you when you are fighting. It waits until you are quiet. The envelope stayed on the table. One night passed, then another. Each time he walked through the kitchen, he felt it, the gentle pull of the exit door. Not panic, not grief, just gravity. Once, as he reached for the light switch, he caught his reflection in the chrome of the doorknob. Warped, gray, older than he felt ready to admit. He looked away, and then, in that pause, that narrow space between staying and leaving, a script arrived. The year was 1986. He was 49 years old. The film was called Street Smart. The role was a character named Fast Black. On the page, Fast Black was young, mid-20s, all twitch and noise and volatility. The kind of man who survives by being louder than his fear, by every rule he had learned. This was not meant for him. He was nearly 50, a grandfather. His hair had gone gray at the temples. There were bags beneath his eyes from nights that never quite ended. This was the moment when most men quietly step aside, when they read the description and think, I used to be able to do that. When they close the script and tell themselves they're being realistic. He didn't. He went into the bathroom and closed the door. The light above the mirror flickered once, then steadied. Harsh, unforgiving. It showed everything. Every line carved by waiting, every disappointment that had settled into bone, every year that had passed without applause. And for the first time in his life, he didn't look away. He didn't try to stand straighter, didn't soften his eyes, didn't search for the version of himself that had once dreamed of flying jets. He just stood there, and something shifted. A young man uses violence because he is afraid. He shouts because he needs to be noticed. He moves fast because he doesn't know how long he'll last. But an older man, a man who has survived decades of silence, doesn't need any of that. He has learned patience. He has learned restraint. He has learned how long suffering can stretch without breaking you. What he saw in the mirror wasn't damage. It was weight. He didn't need youth. He needed gravity. Right there, under that flickering light, he made the only decision that mattered. He wouldn't play the character as written. He would play the history. He would let the years speak. Let the stillness do the work. Let the face tell the truth no one else wanted to look at. He put on a single gold earring, not as decoration, but as a marker. A quiet line drawn between who he had been and who he was done pretending to be. When he walked into the audition room, the air was busy, actors pacing, voices warming up, energy spilling everywhere. They were expecting noise. He entered slowly, sat down, didn't rush. When it was time to read, he lowered his voice, that voice he had been tuning in the dark for 30 years, and let it settle into the room. He didn't perform, he existed. The room changed, not dramatically, not with gasps or applause. It went quiet in a way that felt permanent. They weren't watching a man asking for a chance. They were watching someone who had finally stopped asking. He took the thing the world had told him was a disadvantage, his age, and turned it into presence. At 49 years old, an age when most careers are already defined. Morgan Freeman introduced himself, not as who he wished he were, but as who he had become. After that night, the phone began to ring, not all at once, not with fireworks, just enough to remind him that the room still had a door. Roles came, but notice what they were not. He did not become a romantic lead. He did not run from explosions. He did not pretend to be younger than he was. Instead, he became something far rarer. He became the man who had been waiting in Driving Miss Daisy. He moved slowly, not because the script asked him to, but because life had taught him how. In Glory, his silence carried more weight than speeches. And in The Shawshank Redemption, he played Red, a man who had spent 40 years inside walls built to erase him. 40 years. Do you think a man who found success early could have played that role? Do you think someone untouched by waiting could speak about hope without turning it into a slogan? When Red talks about time, you believe him. Not because the words are poetic, but because the voice behind them has paid the price. You can hear it in the pauses, in the restraint, in the way the sentences don't rush to impress you. You can hear the echo of a kitchen that stayed cold. You can hear the weight of an envelope that sat unopened. You can hear decades of being functional and unsatisfied. This is the part of the story that gets misunderstood. People look at his late success and call it luck, or destiny, or a sudden breakthrough. But nothing about this was sudden. What you are seeing now is not a miracle. It is fermentation. Wine does not become valuable because it is rushed into the light. It becomes valuable because it spends years in a dark cellar, changing quietly, without witnesses. That is what those invisible years were doing. They were thickening the voice, deepening the stillness, teaching him what silence sounds like when it finally speaks. And if you are listening to this, if you are in the middle of your own unseen labor right now, working on something no one claps for, no one understands, no one is waiting on, just exhale. You don't have to carry that weight into the next minute of this story. You don't have to prove anything tonight. Invisible work is not wasted time. It is time that is becoming. Look at him now. He is nearly 90. His hair has turned white. His steps are slower. But the eyes that stared back from a bathroom mirror in 1986, are still clear. When he speaks, rooms soften. When he narrates, people listen, not because he demands attention, but because his voice sounds like it has been somewhere and stayed. He has become one of the most trusted presences in American culture. A voice people turn to when they want the world explained gently, when they want meaning without urgency. But that is not the most important part of this story. The most important part is the man who almost mailed the letter. Somewhere, in a quieter version of the world, there is another him. A man who folded the application, sealed the envelope, and dropped it into a mailbox in 1980. That man drove a cab through New York nights, watched other lives through a windshield, learned the city by heart, but never learned how to forgive himself. He told stories that began with, "I almost." That man is not a failure, but he is a ghost, a version shaped by fear, not time. In this world, the envelope stayed on the table. The face in the mirror did not change. The years did not rewind. Nothing miraculous happened. Only the way he looked at himself did. That was enough. Some lives bloom early, bright, brief. Others grow roots for decades before they dare to touch the sky. They do not rush. They do not apologize. And when they finally rise, they change the landscape. If your life feels quiet right now, unfinished, unseen, unresolved, that does not mean you are late. It means the work is still happening. The room grows quiet again. The radiator hums. The table is empty. But somewhere, a light remains on. You are not late. You are becoming